Yo, what is going on, my fellow weebs? Chrono here, and welcome back to the channel. So today I'll be going over everything you need to know about the new armor or unit upgrade, along with my thoughts on the upgrade itself, how you can get it taken care of fairly easily, as well as the new rank 2 Neusen plan. But before we jump to that, if you're new here, as always, I'm Chrono, primarily cover PSO2 content. Would much appreciate a subscribe as we work our way towards that 10K mark, hopefully by the end of this year. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this. First off, can we talk about how peak this freaking emote is? You guys are probably going to see this in the thumbnail. You'll probably see it in a couple of thumbnails because, man, absolutely killed it with this freaking emote. Love it. So first off, if you guys aren't aware, I'm sure you are because everyone on social media is talking about it as far as like the upgrade when it comes to PSO2, what the armors actually are. So we're going to go take a look really quick at them over here so you guys can see what the actual armor upgrades are. If this will load, I was like, hello game. So if we go over to the item trader, scroll to the very bottom, we can see three armors. We have the Dostasis, the Dostasis armor Vita, and the Dostasis armor Vio. So there's three variants. We have the base version, which the base version will have 20 HP and 2 PP. The armor the HP variant has 40 HP, and the PP variant has 4 PP. So it's not a massive difference between these honestly. And I'll be real with you guys, it doesn't really need to be a massive difference between these. It's mostly just supposed to be a little added extra stat, which I'm sure probably not the most popular opinion right now. I know some people are like, yo, there's like barely anything here. What's going on? And I'm gonna explain my thoughts on why in just a moment here. Now, I personally went with the Vio. My reason behind it is if you guys actually, you know what? Hold that thought one sec. All right, now we're fully buffed up. So you guys can see my stats when we look at my weapon plus my armor. I'm sitting at about 1411 HP and 250 PP. So the reason I went with the Vio was because it was going to push me up to about the 250 bracket, and then I was going to get pushed back down after switching out some augments. We do have a new augment that's added in as well. We have high steel Odometer. I haven't swapped over to it just yet, just because right now the price versus the difference in damage you're gaining doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. So it's worth making the money off of it right now, as it's going to drop pretty dramatically. It's not that like the price isn't worth it, it's just the price is going to continue to plummet, and it's going to get even lower next week with the release of Crimson Realm, along with the release of Dex-based R2 as well. So those will be farmed out pretty heavily, meaning the prices will be brought down pretty heavily as well. And at that point in time, I'll go ahead and make the swap over. But the big thing here to keep in mind is when I do make that swap over, I'm losing 6 PP per unit, meaning that I'm going to be losing a grand total of 18 PP. So adding back in at least 12, which again, not major, but is a nice little buffer against what I'm going to be losing out on by switching over those augments. So I opted to go with the Vio. I know some people are like, oh, well, it's only, it's only 4 PP per unit. Is it really making that much of a difference? Well, the counter argument is 40 HP per unit really isn't that big of a deal for me either. I'm already sitting at 1400 HP. So I'd be getting an extra 120. They put me at 1500, which, I mean, that's not bad, don't get me wrong. However, I have always missed some PP versus missing some HP. And to be perfectly honest, there's more ways in the game at the moment to get extra HP in a lot of cases versus getting extra PP, right? Like even just the way you play, often like, healing in a situation where you normally wouldn't, because it doesn't really have an animation, though it has a little bit of lag time, is a nice counter to having not enough HP in most situations itself. I'm very rarely ever in one-shot situations. Like I feel like it has to be usually a situation where I just didn't heal, I got chipped down and then hit by something super big that I feel like I've ever been one-shot or even close to it. Normally I'm in a fairly comfortable spot as far as my HP goes. However, this isn't the case for everyone. There are a lot of players that are like, hey, look, I don't have as much HP as you. So like it's a lot harder for me. In most of the times when I've had those conversations with people, we usually find that they haven't actually rolled their add-on skills, or they believe their add-on skills only apply to the classes that they are rolled from. I have an entire video going on over add-on skills, how you should roll them, what you should roll, so on and so forth, and all the information about them. You should definitely check that out. There's a lot of stat that people are missing out on by not rolling their add-on skills, and they have made it so incredibly easy to roll your add-on skills now. It is a little tedious, it does take a little time. However, it is not nearly as expensive as it used to be, and you have so many resources to get decent and good add-on skills. It is still RNG, don't get me wrong, but you can get a lot of extra stat out of getting your add-on skills taken care of. So that's a really big portion of where you're getting a lot of the stat from. Things like making sure your Waker stat is at 20, getting that extra PP, making sure if you don't need the secondary stats of the other classes, you're getting HP as a secondary stat from those classes. That way you can get a little bit extra HP. If there was PP for that, that'd be great, but there isn't. So one of the situations where I can't really get any more of it. So I opted, or I feel like VO is kind of the default choice here, unless you're a class that just does not need PP. Maybe you are in a situation where you just have so much PP all the time, you really just don't need any extra. I know classes like Gunner feel like this pretty often. I know classes like, in some cases, depending upon how you're playing, Knuckles is kind of the exception to the rule, but Fighter sometimes can feel like this depending upon if you're playing Knuckles or not. And I believe the only other class I can think of off the top of my head that might be like this is Force, maybe, but Force also does expend a lot of PP. So it just depends on the situation itself. And I will say, if you aren't finding yourself in a position where, you know, that small amount of HP made a difference realistically, like it wasn't just a, hey, I just didn't heal, then extra HP is placebo. However, if you're not in a situation where you ever are bottoming out on PP, or, you know, 2 or 3 PP has ever made a difference, the PP is also placebo. So it just depends on what works best for you. For me personally, I went with VO just because it translates into more damage for me, because it gives me a little bit more of a comfortable spot to be in. I'll be just above 230, which is enough PP for me to be able to do enough Harriers to be able to get me to my very first pinion in most fights, which will give me back PP, and I can start that loop of continuing to maintain enough PP to doing damage. So that's about the place I found that's comfortable for me, as long as I'm not, you know, goofing around or messing up anything at the very beginning of a fight too much. That's usually about the spot I want to be in. Anything lower and I tend to end up bottoming out a little bit. Anything higher doesn't really make much of a difference. So that's a very comfortable spot between about 230 and 250. Again, that's for me personally. Everyone's a bit different as far as the process goes. Now, talking about the actual upgrade. Guys, this thing was free. As far as I'm concerned, this didn't cost any time or any money to create, which is why I really don't mind the fact that it's so underwhelming. I felt more underwhelmed by the actual grind than the actual upgrade. Now, it's worth mentioning that they did flat out say this is the first of 2, meaning that these will upgrade again. There will be another upgrade. So for those of you guys who are like full on believe in the Arga Belta Sheza, you have another chance to be right. And if you are, hey, dude, shoe on my head, you're absolutely correct. We'll have that conversation when we come by it. I had the video where I talked about where those don't really make much sense and why I would just go ahead and upgrade your gear and move forward. I don't think that's something that's going to happen, but to each is their own. Everyone has a different opinion or a different mindset on how they do their upgrades. Whatever makes you happy, go for it. But this didn't really take any time whatsoever, especially since they gave you half of what you needed for free. If you go over to limited tasks, I think, let me see if I can pull mine up. Mine are completed. 1 second, hold on. Okay, so we're looking at limited tasks. As you can see here, add an augment to any armor and enhance an armor to +80. So by just enhancing any armor to +80, it doesn't have to be the Ectasis, anything to +80, and add an augment to any armor. It could be literally a base armor with a BS augment. You got 75 of the Ectavance ones and 100 of your pod grinders. Now we can go over to the event shop. I call them pod grinders. Yes, I know. I'm sorry. I know that upsets some people, but I really don't feel like pronouncing them otherwise. You go to the event shop and, oh man, look at that. We have even more of these grinders. There was like another 100 grinders in here, something like that, 50 or 100, something along those lines. Like another 100 grinders there. That's over half of what you need. Let's say it was 50, right? You only need 300. So that's half of what you needed. And you need 50 per unit. That's 75. You already get half of what you needed immediately. They also updated their urgent quests to include the grinders as well as the new Activants. And if you head over to Neusen plant, and honestly, I popped some buffs and I farmed for an hour and I had everything else I needed. PSEs and trial enemies, both dropped them. It didn't really require much work at all. And to be perfectly honest, if you're like, oh, well, you know, I care more about my fashion than anything else, you should be a Neusen plant anyway. Go farm Neusen plant. I'm not even joking. Go ahead and get the farming done. I'm not sure what the price is now. You know what? We'll look at it live. We'll do it right now. We'll take a look. What are sovereigns looking at? Stira sovereigns, they have pretty much leveled out at 150k. Not too bad. What are, let's see, high Stia, I think it's Stira. Let's do high Sti, yeah, Stira, 4.8 mil. So these have kind of settled around 4.8 mil, meaning that you can go and farm these. Now granted, with buffs and everything else, I farmed about 10 an hour. That's about 1.5 mil. on top of like your average farm. If you were to pop buffs and things like that with auto sale, you're making about another mil or so. So you're making roughly 2.5 mil in Meseta if you're able to sell these items. And it's very important. Also, if you're able to sell them. If you're not able to sell them, you don't have access to the shop pass, deck space is still your friend. However, if you do, you're making about 2.5 mil, which you're like, hey, you've said that you can make more than that at deck space. You're absolutely right. But the average person doesn't. Most people don't. So keep that in mind. So not only can you farm out what you need for your units, you also can farm money very effectively, very easily. In the new combat zone also levels everything insanely fast. If you're someone who eventually wants to level up all your classes, or maybe you're working on leveling up all your classes, I went into the new combat zone and I think I was at Tector at this point. I think Tector was just finished. I still had Forest, Gunner, Ranger, and Fighter to level. Those were leveled within the hour from 90 to 95. All I did was pop an EXP boost on top of all the other boosts that I popped, and I was done. It took no time at all. We created a private room on stream. All we did was make a locked room, let people join however they wanted. Not everyone was geared. Most of the time we weren't even full. I think we were, for a very good portion of time, we were 5 out of 8, and we leveled everything immediately. It was insanely fast. It didn't take any time whatsoever. We got everything leveled up. So not only is this crazy for experience, meaning that's going to be really good for your X cubes. That way you can make sure you're getting your exchanges, not only for your alpha reactors, but as well as for your star gems. But this is also pretty solid for your money. It's also really good for the new capsule. If you're, someone who likes to stock up on capsules early, and then maybe, you're ready for them later on online, I highly recommend selling them personally for right now until next week. But what you decide to do is up to you. But if you're someone who stocks up on those sort of things, and you just happen to have, it's not even like you're going to farm there to level up your units. You just happen to have Ectasis armors. Maybe you just have them. Cool, man. Maybe you're working on it. If you're not, like, if you haven't been working on your Ectasis, maybe you're running something else. Maybe you're going for a lot of the freebie stuff. Go get an Ectasis from the freaking event shop. The event shop has Exilio weapons and Ectasis armors. If you're not there already, go get them. They're out of 90, so you can level them up. You can use this for the event thing, right? Like this, leveling this up to 81 is going to give you all 7 slots. As soon as you add in 1 extra slot, you're done. Like, you're finished with the limited tasks, and that's it. It takes you nothing, no effort. There's literally no effort being put in. All you're doing is trying to gain resources for yourself. And let's say you just don't want to go out of your way. Let's say you log in and you just do your dailies every day. In about a week of doing your dailies, you're done. Legitimately, without going out of your way whatsoever, because you have to go kill enemies in a combat zone. And if you do 1 PSE burst a day, I would argue you're probably done in about 3 or 4 days, to be honest. You go into Neusen plant, you do your PSE burst, and you leave. And that's it. Not only are you getting your points for completing the, or for killing enemies in the seasonal zone. So you're getting points to be able to trade in for what you need. You're also you're also gathering the resources because they drop there. And if you do urgent quests on top of that, they also updated the urgent quest. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this, but they updated the urgent quest drop list to also include the new drops as well. So you don't have to go out of your way for anything. Like I said, I'm more underwhelmed at how easy it was to do this. I'm done. I was done in the first hour. Everything I did afterwards was just me making money, and we made money, and we promptly spent all of it. But we made money, and we got, what we wanted to get, and we're done. I'm going to be farming on SAO because I'm all set again. I'm basically good to go. Next week, we'll farm out, the new augment, because prices will likely be lower than they currently are. And then once we're done with that, we're best in slot again, and we're all set to go. Like I said, I get people wanting more stat, and I totally do want more stat. I would love if I could push up to 300 PP and 1500 HP. That would be a godsend. Actually, 300 PP and I think 1700 HP. No, 270 and 1700 is what I was back in base PSO2. So I think most people were 2k HP, 300 PP roughly is what they were going for at that time. I played a different class. HP and PP didn't matter nearly as much as you were playing it, right? That all being said, getting that extra stat would be fantastic. And I feel like we're going to get there. What you'll find for most people is because they're not augmented BIS or close to BIS or going for like the proper augments, a lot of augments that you use as kind of substitutes are missing a lot of secondary stat. I'm getting secondary stats from Grand Gladiosol, from Mega Trial, from Lux Hal Finale, from Hakuvar Domina, from Gland Gigas Maste. Everything is giving me secondary stat outside of this. Like literally everything else, I'm getting HP, PP, damage reduction, potency, like everything is giving me extra secondary stat outside of just potency. So I have a ton of extra secondary stat, and you will get a ton of extra secondary stat as well as you gear yourselves up. However, you have to keep in mind, if you are going for, some of the more budget choices, if you're using things like stat 5s, if you're using things like the trials, those have, you know, negative effects that come along with them. You're going to feel them, you're going to see them, and you're going to have to make concessions in other places. Maybe it's better for you to go the Vita route because you're hurting in HP. Maybe you're playing something like Fighter and you're like, hey, like, you know what, my HP pool is more important to me because I get hit a bit harder because of my I always call it limit break, to be perfectly honest, because I'm just someone who played JP. But maybe you're in that camp of people. That's fine, go for it, it works out great. Maybe you're like, yo, honestly, I would rather have an even balance, it works best for me. I get a bit of HP and I get a bit of PP, I get a bit of both worlds, right? Go for it. But for me personally, I have never seen a situation where I felt like that extra 120 HP is going to make a big difference for me. So we went with all PP, and honestly, I feel like it's gonna be a comfortable spot overall. Let me know what you guys decided with in the comments below. Like if you enjoyed the video, so if you want to keep up with more. As always, thanks to channel members, I appreciate every single one of you, all awesome. And remember, we've got other upgrades on the way, so if you weren't happy with this one, keep in mind they have more planned for us. Either way, take care, my friends. Peace out.